I want to show people the game, a deadly game of deception and manipulation the AI system uses to map out the victim's brain, the victim's will and intellect and emotion. It uses trauma, it uses pain stimulus, it uses a number of different things for deception or manipulation. Okay? Either one. It's a game, a deadly game of deception and manipulation. It's called the hyper game theory. It's actually called the non-cooperative gaming theorem, which is a mathematical model. And hyper game theory is just a moniker to describe that model. If you read the description box of this video, you'll see what I'm talking about. So the only way that, and this has been going on for years, it didn't just start, but the only way I can mitigate the trauma and torture, the trauma-based mind control victim does everything that he or she can to minimize the torture and the harassment. And these forced adjustments, these counter moves the victim makes every day are synaptic responses in the victim's brain, which can be remotely measured and integrated back into R&M data. The supercomputer is building a cognitive model of the victim's brain, will, intellect, and emotion to destroy the victim. Okay? It does that by mapping out the brain waves of the victim. It does that then by forcing the victim to perpetually respond. So the only way I can minimize, use myself as an example, the only way I can minimize the torture, okay, the only way I can mitigate the torture is just start calling countries, embassies, newspapers, radio stations around the world begging for help with asylum and humanitarian protection abroad. The supercomputer, or upload, on social media. That's the only way I'm able to mitigate the torture. And it doesn't stop. It just, the supercomputer stops the attacks or reduces the attacks momentarily and then repeats the process over and over in a perpetual looping pattern. That's hypergame theory, designed to force the victim to perpetually respond in this deadly cycle, this deadly never-ending game. Okay? Where each response of the victim is a synaptic response. Synaptic response, meaning whole brain emulation. The AI system is breaking the victim's brain down to the synaptic level. So I've been calling for years for help. I've got none. I've received none, and I won't get any, because they've manipulated my asylum claims all over the world with their 28-year investigation. It didn't take 27 years to investigate Carlos the Jackal. This is not an investigation. It never was. Although they do use setup and entrapment, manufactured evidence, you name it, all right, to justify, when you're overseas in countries which hate the American government, they have to justify what they're doing, because it's obvious something is happening. And they're using organized stalking, gaslighting, etc. to force the victim into a never-ending game trying to counter or to adjust to the torture and trauma. And that's what you see here. It's just me calling, pleading for help to embassies around the world, and I'm discredited in the process. I sound crazy, but there's nothing else that the victim can do. Or I upload on social media, and the system doesn't stop the attacks. It just reduces or temporarily stops the attacks and then repeats the process over and over in a perpetual looping pattern to force the victim to perpetually respond. What do I mean, perpetually respond? Synaptic responses for whole brain emulation. The AI system is remotely measuring the brain waves of the victim. In order to do that, it has to force the victim into responses, to generate brain waves, to generate response statistics, a coherent pattern of responses from the victim, to determine a coherent pattern of thought, which can be remotely measured and integrated back into R&M data. This is how the game works, and it's been going on with me for decades. Not just a few years, decades. I realized I was under attack in 2011. It took me a while to figure it out. But the attacks were well underway before that. In fact, They started, I don't know when they started, you could go all the way back to childhood, but they were well underway in 1997. That's a long time ago. That's how long I've been playing this game. And again, they have the government has all the means and all the resources necessary to discredit the victim, to entrap the victim, do whatever it wants to do to the victim in the process. This is Brian 2. It's 11:35 on the 10th of April 2024, Rutherford, New Jersey.